Alright, so if you have a look at my fabric, you can see that my fabric is not long enough. This is working on the grain. So I have to make a decision because I would like to work on the grain. When you work on the grain, you'll see that your fabric, this is on the grain, your fabric stretches slightly. And that's what you want, because if you sit down, your fabric will stretch with you, and if it doesn't stretch, it weighs the fabric down. So I haven't got a wide enough. You would need about a 65-inch width in your fabric if you're wanting this to fit on the grain. Now I've made a call with mine, and mine's not going to be on the grain, but I figured because it's so wide, it's not really going to matter. So I'm going to flip mine around and do it off the grain. Now if you can get a nice piece of fabric that you like, that is at least 65 inches wide, because that's including your seam allowances, because this is, remember, this is going 64 all the way across, and then I did half an inch on either side for my seam allowance, so therefore you'd need at least a 65 inch, if not a little bit wider, which is pretty wide for this kind of a fabric. So therefore I'm just going to go off the grain, and it'll work out fine. So I have to flip my fabric around, and I'm going to put my pattern on that. So you can go ahead and do that. Remember, this must go on the fold. This part goes on the folded part of your fabric. And then I'm going to cut mine out. So I'm going to flip mine around. I'm going to cut it out. So in other words, I'm going to this is the way it should be. This is the way it should be, but I'm going to just turn it around, flip my fabric around and do it lengthwise. Now, you still need to have a wide enough fabric, because otherwise this is not going to fit this way. Alright, so I will be doing mine off, not on the grain. Mine is not on the grain, it's off the grain. Now, you need a minimum, you still need a wide width. You need a minimum of a 55-inch width. That's the minimum you can go. 55, preferably wider. The best, as I said, is a 65. So I would have needed another 10 inches for mine to fit on the grain. So that is a bit of a wide fabric, but it's just how it is. So anyway, I'm doing mine off the grain. Mine is 55 inches wide, which does work, and you can see I've got a little bit of space at the top there and that's including seam allowances. So I'm going to go ahead and cut mine out. You just follow your pattern, keep this on the fold, cut up the side of the leg, go up to the top there and cut across there, come down, and just follow the pattern and cut that out, and then I will meet you back. Right, so you've just cut this piece out of your fabric. Now you're going to lay your band right at the bottom of it, and this is actually going to be on the grain, so that works out pretty well. And you can see that this now ends up being on the grain, so that's great. Put that on the fold, the one side on the fold. Now I'm going to cut all the way down. It's going to be too long, but I just prefer to cut it longer. So you can go ahead and cut that out. So once you have cut yours out, I took my band and I just marked, this is where the end of the band was. I just like to have a little bit extra just in case, because I've done bands before and I've ended up having not enough fabric, so I always just make mine longer. You don't have to, but I just made it, but this is where it actually ends. So I'm going to put that aside. Now you're going to take your fabric and you're going to turn it. Mine was the right sides. I worked on the right side, so I want to go onto the wrong sides. So I'm going to flip mine inside out, and I'm just going to turn it around, and I'm going to have it so I've got the wrong side facing me. So I will be working with the wrong sides, and you can just put a pin over there if you want to, just to know where your top is. You got a lot of fabric here, so it's a little bit confusing as to what's what. So that's the top part, and here's the other top part. And I'm just going to pin that there, just so I know these are the two top parts, and it's coming down here. And then there's my foot. This is where the foot is, so I'm just going to pin these two together over here. That's where the foot will be. So I know where to keep my work open and where to sew it closed. And so that's the side coming down from the top to the foot, and then this is the other side, and this is where my foot, my ankle will go over here. Whoops, my ankle will go right over there, and this gets sewn all the way up. Okay, so once you've got that, you should be in pretty good shape and we should be ready to sew. So be sure that you've got it inside out, and I'll show you how to sew it now. Alright, so once you've got this inside out, I have decided to put a bit of a border on by our ankle, by our foot. I didn't want to put an elastic in mine. If you want an elastic in, you can. All you would do is just fold this over like that. You could just fold a piece and then fold this over and put a thin elastic in the bottom. That'll work just as well, but I'm actually going to just put a border around mine with the same fabric because I've got some fabric left over. So whichever one you prefer to do. Alright, so I managed to cut mine out of the last, so now you got 2 pieces for your ankle. You can do that other one straight if you don't want to cut it on a fold, but just make sure that you double this if you're cutting it out the way I am now. So as long as these fit around your ankle. Okay, and that, now I've got 2 pieces for my foot, and this is the foot that is now open. This is where the foot closes, and we're going to be putting it on like this, and you can see when you put it on it actually does fit. You need a little bit extra there, and I pinned mine on and it actually does fit. So there, it's a perfect fit up to there. So that's what you need to do for your feet. So now I'm going to show you how we sew our garment, how we pin it together to sew it. Right, so what you want to do is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your piece for your ankle. This is the piece that we're using for the ankle that you cut out, and you want to get an iron. And we are just going to, I just folded mine in half, you don't really have to. We're going to iron just a little piece like this. Let's see how much that is. I just really go by feel. That is about just over 1/4 inch. So it's just over 1/4 of an inch, close to 1/2 an inch. Depends on how much you want to do. And then you're going to just iron it down. So between 1/4 to 1/2 an inch, and then you're going to, whoops, and then you're just going to iron it down. I've just got this little steamer that I use. Yeah, that's hot enough. And you're just going to iron it down. It just makes it easier when you sew. I'm just doing this here because it's easier for you to see. And I'm going to sew this down. Sorry, not sew it down, I'm just going to iron it down. You're doing this on this side and you're going to do it on the other side. If you have an overlocker and your fabric frays a lot, you could overlock this too before you actually iron it down. So you do that on this side and you're going to do it on the other side. Exactly the same. Try and keep it more or less the same. If you want to be perfect and measure across 1/4 inch with a line, and then so if you want to be absolutely perfect, you could just measure 1/4, you can measure 1/4 to 1/2 an inch and draw a straight line and then do it that way. But I don't, I'm just doing it like this. I don't need it perfect. So I'm doing it now on the other side. So go ahead and do that with yours, and then I'll meet you back now. Okay, so what you're wanting to do now is you're going to, once you've ironed yours like that, you're going to take your pants and be sure that the wrong side is facing you, that you have the 2 right sides facing each other. Okay, so this is my right side facing. Come down to where your feet are. Okay, so these are the feet. This is where my ankle is going to be. Now what I want to do is you're just going to pin this on. You're not going to sew it yet. So this is now my two right sides facing each other. So I'm just going to open it up, and I now have my right side open. Okay, so this is the wrong sides like that, it's folded like that, just open it up, this is now the right side. And all you're going to do is you're going to take this, now I've made mine longer than what this needs to be because I prefer to do that, that's why I said make yours a bit longer. But all you're going to do now is you're going to put this, it's a little tricky to see where your end is, but where it starts angling, that's going to be where you're going to sew it. So this is the ankle part here. So I'm not going to use the ends of mine, so I'm just going to put it right over here on there. Now I'm not, as I say, I'm not using all of that because I know that mine is fairly long. So I can just work with yours as much as you have on either side. You can leave so much. Okay, so I'm putting this on here and I'm flipping this over so it's equal, and I'm going to put this fold on there. So I'm putting both the folds on the edge of this fabric, but be sure that this fabric does come to the end of that, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And don't clip it, don't pin it right on the edge there, just pin it here, and you must catch both sides equally. So you're really just sandwiching it in between this and this, and then you're just going to pin it there. Okay, and don't go all the way to the end because we're just pinning this, we're going to sew down here. But it's easier just to pin this on while it's straight before I fold it over. And there's so many different techniques of doing this. If you have a better way, feel free to use your way. You know, whichever way I'm sewing, this is the way I do it. And you can find whichever way works best for you. Just be sure that you do have that sandwiched in there, because if you don't and you sew, you're going to either miss sewing this, or so just be sure that you have got this sandwiched in between here and that you're catching it on both sides equally, and that it's not when you catch it on the back, that it's not getting too bulky here. See, there might be a little bit, so you want to be careful of that. You want to get it as straight as you can. See, and I can feel there I need to just straighten it out in the back a bit. It just helps in the long run. So you can do that. Go ahead and pin yours on. You can pin it on both of yours, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so once you've got it pinned on, and as I say, don't go right to the ends. There's my end and there's the end. I'm just pinning it on so I've got it more or less in place. Now with the right sides together, you're going to sew up your leg. Now if you want to pin yours first, that's great. However you sew, just pin it together all the way so that you can just sew. And this is right sides facing, so the wrong side is facing me, and we're just going to sew up here. Now if you have an overlocker, you can overlock this when you're done. You know, that's entirely up to you. If you don't, you can use one of your stitches that usually the sewing machines will have an overlocking kind of a stitch which you can use, and that'll just stop your work from fraying. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to sew mine. So you're just going to go all the way. Now when you get to the top, okay, well let me just, I must well pin this with you. Okay, so you're just going to pin this until you reach the top over here. And once you reach the top, just stop. So what you're going to do now is you're going to sew all the way down the one leg till you get to the ankle part over here. And you can sew down there, just up like you usually do. Sew this. I'm going to do that, and then you do the same thing on the other side. You can go ahead and sew those sides up, and then I'll meet you back here. Alright, so I've gone ahead and sewn mine from the top all the way down to the feet here, to the ankle, and I just overlocked mine. As I say, you don't have to have an overlocker. You can use one of the stitches on your machine just to stop it from fraying. So that's entirely up to you. So now what you want is you want to come to where you've pinned this on. Okay, so you should be looking like this. This is still your wrong side of your work. Okay, now you can see over here what you're wanting to do is to see, come as close as you can to where your center part here is, and I can see that it's right over here on this piece. So I'm going to put a bit of a marker here so I know it's right over there where that little knob is, and this one is going to be, when I put it over here, it's going to be basically over here on this piece here. So you're trying to see where this piece is going to end on there, because we want to sew it together, and I'm going to mark it over there. So that piece is there and that piece is right over there. Now I'm just going to unpin so that I can get to this part here. So this is fairly free. You need this fairly free over here. Just so far should do it. Okay, now that's where I need to sew these together. So they like this now, okay, facing each other like this. Your work is like this. That's your wrong side, like this. You've marked over there. Okay, so they're looking at each other like this. Put those, just do it like this. Put them together like that. Grab it over here, and we're going to sew these together. And we're sewing it where we've got our little markers. So this one needs to join here. And that's where you're going to sew them. Okay, and keep these down like that. You're just going to be sewing it across. Okay, so let me show you once more. This is your work here. This is your little ankle piece that you pinned on. Okay, and we pinned it on because I'm going to sew it on the right side of the work. There's the wrong side. So your pieces are going to be like this. If you just have it like you had it, they'd be facing each other like this. Okay, you're just going to join them, just do this to it, and you're going to flip it around because you're going to sew these inside out. So you're looking like this. Okay, and just join these two together up here. Okay, so I'm going to take this marker and that marker, and I'm going to put them together right over there, and this is where we wanting to sew. So I'm going to pin these two together like that, and this, now I'm a little bit tight here, so I'm going to take this one off too. There you go. Just make it so it's easy enough for you to work with. Alright, because I need these two to finish at the same spot. So that's more or less the same spot. So these are equal now, and I can see where I need to go down. And it's going to be a straight line, so I'm a little skew there. I'm just going to sew across here. If you find you're really off, you'll have to undo it, but odds are you'll be pretty much in the right spot. Okay, now we're just going to sew down here. Alright, so once you have sewn that, I'm going to cut mine off, but I just want to be sure before that I do that, that mine is, I'm going to cut this close. I'm actually going to overlock this, but I just want to be sure that I am good. Now you want to line this up with that over there. You want to line the sewing and this up, this and this up. So as long as you have that over there, you could pin it so long if you wanted to, and then just be sure that this is going to fit in properly, which mine is, and this side is going to fit in properly as well. Let's see there. Yeah, so mine is good. Okay, so I've made it in the right place there. So I'm going to go ahead and overlock this and cut this piece off, and then I'm going to sew the rest of this on. I'll show you how. So once you've sewn it, I overlocked mine like that. Be sure that you've got it like this, that your work is like this now. And you want to line this one up so this comes in the middle here. Now put this to either side. You can either put it on this side. Just be sure that you have these little threads in. You don't want these to be seen. And then line this one up in the center right over there. It's going to be in the middle. Same with this one. Put it to the side and move those little pieces there, and then put this on top. So now we should have our center down the center. That center piece will be down the center piece. Yeah, see, that's why you want to get these little pieces in. Now when you sew, you can just push it up a bit and then be sure that you've got it under. You don't want this sticking out. And yeah, now you can just put the rest of this back on, and you should be the correct length. Just kind of stretch it out like this and then pin it on there, and then you can sew that. And you do the same thing for your other foot. And here, see, now this is all lining up fine. So just make sure that's sandwiched in the middle like you did before, and then pin it together. Be sure that you're just working on this one side and not including this side onto it, just like that. And then you can sew it together. So, okay, and then once you've got that in, you can start sewing. Now I'm sewing mine on the right hand side of the work because I like the stitch to be on this side and I can see what I'm doing. Just be very careful when you sew that you do catch the back. So you can, I wouldn't sew right on the edge, I'd kind of sew a little bit in the middle here, just a little bit off, like where my pin is, because you want to catch everything. You want to catch this piece, you want to catch this piece, and you want to catch this piece. So you can go ahead and do that, and then you will have your cuff on the bottom of your leg. So I'm going to sew that and do your other side, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, now with my foot here, you can see I'm lining it up with the back. There's the back seam. The back seam is there, and this is the middle piece that I want to have there, and I'm joining this one on top of it. So now I should be good. Now just flip this in a little bit. Alright, just so it's like that. This piece should come. You just have to fiddle with yours, play with it a little bit so that you can get it right. And it doesn't really matter on the other side, because the other side is the inside of your foot, because I'm working on the right side of my fabric. So I'm going to start over there and I'm going to sew mine. So this is the fiddly part. Get this right and then you can go all the way around. But that's what your little cuff will look like once you are done. So those are your feet, your ankles. Now the very last part that we have to do is this top part. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that.